Charlie, we have some. All right. Well,
What do you need? What do you need? You're just pointing.
I'm pointing at some. All right. Well, no, that's terrible angle.
Okay.
Anyways, I'm terrible.
Did you,
at pictures here.
Chad, watch the presidential debates on Tuesday?
No.
Of course you didn't. Why are you
no.
priding yourself on being uninformed?
Why? Let me ask you this: Why am I uninformed if I don't watch them real time when they happen?
Let me tell you this: I watched maybe half of it. I learned nothing.
Yep, that surprises me not one bit.
So I did watch it, and I felt almost like a weird sort of duty. You know, it's like, I mean, I need to at least know kind of what's going on in this country.
That's
to
fair.
a certain extent.
Am I over too far? Are we good?
It's okay. It's okay.
Should we be crowding more?
It's okay.
Is this angle right? Is the lighting good, Jared?
I'll try to adjust for your specific needs.
We spent hours on makeup.
Yeah.
You know, we're really trying to bring up the production level for the people, Jared.
I did watch the debate, and it was terrible. First, they were just. They specifically a lot more Trump than Biden, but it was just just talking over. You know, each person gets 2 minutes to answer a question uninterrupted. Then they can have some back and forth.
Right.
That 2-minute uninterrupted was never respected for any of the questions that I watched, at least. And then there were just these like petty, like insults.
Right.
Almost middle school level insults.
That's why I didn't bother watching the debate. To
And
be
I'm
honest
like,
with you.
these insults are lame if I'm just hanging out with my friends and no one's recording us. Like,
Right.
They're extra lame.
I mean, it's basically us before we start recording a podcast with a higher level of intellect. I would argue, but you know, that's why I didn't watch it, because I knew number one, I would hear about all the stuff the next day or even that evening if it was really ridiculous, which I did, you know, and it's really sad that it's come to this point where we can't even have a civilized discussion between two people who are running for the highest office in the United States.
Yeah.
And they act like, I will say this though. Biden did interrupt Trump, but not nearly to the level and to the degree which Trump interrupted Biden.
Yeah,
So,
sure. Yeah.
Look, both of them made mistakes. No one is scot-free here, but both of them need to act with a higher standard.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna say Biden expertly chopped him to bits with his talk on policy or anything like that. It's just. It's not even necessarily about the policy part, because I don't really. I mean, does Trump know what his policy is? Does anyone that votes for him really know what his policy is?
I think his policy is no policy.
Policy went out the window a long time ago. But like the thing is, it was just like. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, that's the main reason why I turned it off, because I was like, this is making me angry and I'm learning nothing. Mm-hmm. But it was just how childish it was. It was just so pathetic. It was so pathetic. Oh my gosh. And then, come to find out, not only was, this is not shocking, but now apparently half the Republican Party's got COVID now. I assume you've seen.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, and at first though, dude, it was weird when I saw the announcement of when Trump tweeted out that him and Flotus had COVID. I'm not going to lie, I was a little skeptical.
Yeah, of course.
I wondered. I was like, and you know, you'd really hope that no one would lie about something like that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't put it past.
Yeah,
them,
if anyone were to do it, well, why would you put it past them? Yeah, I mean, of course, everything that they say and do kind of has to be looked at with the side eye. I mean, this is with most presidents, but this especially, where even getting sick is like. And there was a point. So in my house, at least, my partner hates. Just looking at like having stuff of him like on TV and stuff, which I do too for the most part. Sure. But this is how disgusting we are as humans. No offense to my partner; she's a lovely person. The one time I see her looking at like Trump-related news was watching. They had a camera on the helicopter to see how he was going to go to was he's going to walk under his own power or whatever to the helicopter,
go to the hospital.
And I was like, this is really something that the world has come to. Then of course, you know. on Twitter, Chad.
Yes, you are. So are we at the Untranslatable
That's true.
podcast.
Untranslatable podcast. I'm also on Instagram, Untranslatable 1, the number 1. Excuse me.
That's the Twitter.
Other way around. Twitter is Untranslatable 1, the number 1. Untranslatable podcast is the Instagram. But people have, as we've talked about on many occasions before, like Herman Cain passing, no chill. No chill, to the point where Twitter actually had to put out a statement saying that they're going to make it that you're not allowed to wish death upon the president. They had to come out with the...
Oh, man.
And I was like, first of all, why now? People have been having death wished upon them way before the president got COVID.
I mean, Twitter is a crazy place in general.
Oh, by the way, speaking of you thinking it was a quote-unquote hoax that he even had COVID at the beginning, now I think I'm to the point where I'm pretty confident that it's probably real.
Yeah,
but I'm with you too. For a bit, I'm like, I don't know if I can fully believe this yet. Yeah. I'm not going to fully believe this until I see him. I don't know. I need more confirmation.
Right.
But it is. I never want to be at a point in my life where people are questioning if I'm gonna live or not, and they're talking about me in the terms that they talk about someone like Trump, and not even people on the internet, but I mean like even just like on the news, where they're like, well, how will this change his strategy going forth in his political campaign? How will this help Biden's political campaign, and how will this either hurt or help Trump's run for president? He's a very hot button. It's just like I don't know. It's just it's the same thing kind of happened with RBG, like when she passed away, and everyone was just like talking about how people who voted for Trump ruined this country or whatever. Where it's like, oh man, that's a rough legacy to leave.
Right.
That's a rough way to go out. I want people to talk about me.
Right. Well, you know what the problem is too with a lot of people, especially a lot of really pro-Biden people, is that they think by theoretically getting rid of Trump, that's going to solve all the problems, and it's not. Yeah. It really won't. Biden is in my opinion not the best choice either, but it's better than I guess nothing, which is a shame that's where
that's not the other option. The other option isn't Biden or no leadership.
Right. Well, or you go third party, and that could and as far as I'm concerned, when people say you do that you're voting for Trump, I wonder do we know enough about the polls and everything, how it's really going to go yet to say that? Because I really wonder how
you're definitely taking that risk.
Right.
And that's a big risk to take, some might say.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that that's a big risk,
right,
that you're contributing to some like to. I mean, I guess you make a good point though. Like, but I think the thing is, most people that go third party are usually, it seems like, unless it's maybe libertarian or something, tend to be people that would like lean more left in general.
Right.
Like whether it's the Green Party or whatever other socialist party there's out there.
I would probably go independent or third party if the stakes weren't where they were at right now.
That would be nice if that was even an option. That's never been an option in American history.
That's true. That's true.
The third parties are all just, I don't even know, representing some ideas that...
I wonder if one thing related to our topic today has something to do with that, which is I wonder if capitalism is one of the main... If you could argue that capitalism is kind of the cause of... Maybe the cause or the effect of our two-party system. I mean, if you look at money in politics nowadays, you have money in politics, I think, in any political system because, let's be honest, people are in politics and people are greedy and people want money.
And they're all connected, too.
Right. But I think that the way it functions as a capitalist country versus a communist country, which we'll be getting into more in depth today, but I wonder if that has to do with where we're at politically in the States a little bit with our two-party system.
Interesting. I guess I never thought about... Now, obviously, I'm very aware of how, capitalism is involved in politics and swaying politics through, financial means and paying for or paying for or donating to certain campaigns with the expectation that, all right, if we're going to give you this millions of dollars, we expect you to do put in place policies that will help our company or or our shareholders or whatever it might be. But I guess I never thought about that directly influencing like the two-party system.
Well, you know what's crazy too is it blows my mind the amount of money that's spent and is raised during election years, campaigns, presidential races. It's really crazy if you think about the amount of money they raise for that, and what do they use it on? I'm asking. I don't really know what they do use it on.
I mean, travel. They have like employees that they pay. Right. TV ads. But yeah, like when you hear those numbers,
and they're crazy
because it's like tens and hundreds of millions of dollars that these people are spending.
I thought Biden, it was at like $350 million. I thought I saw something around.
Is that what it was? I don't even know.
I'm not sure. I could be completely wrong about that, but that number for some reason sticks in my mind as like seeing it on TV and seeing like Biden campaign raises, blah blah blah. But it's crazy.
Which is why you can only. It's like unless you have these large parties and these large corporate interests behind you, it's impossible for just a person unless they're already rich from some other way, to get to $350 million together, unless you're like Bezos and he's just like, just for fun, I'll run for president too. Why not take over the U.S. in
I wonder if he doesn't do that because I mean the amount you're in the public eye even more.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that being president, especially for someone like Bezos, is probably more work for significantly less money, like exponentially less money. The opposite of exponentially less money.
But the funny thing is, and I feel like this is also coming from a very capitalist point of view, the point of money and the presidency, right? Like you don't do it would for sure be a downgrade from financial
status, though.
Right. It's not a money thing. Yeah, I feel like
it's a good point.
Well, at least I think before Trump got in, I don't think it was a money thing. But I think with Trump getting in, I mean, I think he is definitely financially capitalized on the presidency.
Seems like he needs to get money from wherever he can get it from.
Yeah, dude, you and I both have paid more in taxes. I mean, dude, when I was living in the Czech Republic, I think my salary was, American standards wise, it was below the poverty line. In the Czech Republic, it was enough to live fairly comfortably, but over here, it was below poverty. I still paid more taxes than he did that year.
And it sounds like he was just as poor as you were when you lived in Czech Republic too.
Right, no kidding.
I don't know how
losing all that money.
And apparently he has like a bunch of loans or something that he's like outstanding loans, like tens of millions of dollars worth of loans. I'm like, who's giving this person loans?
I want to know, who's his banker and who's his tax guy?
Someone needs to get fired for giving that guy loans.
Oh man.
Or it's like, you're not getting that money back anytime soon.
Well, I think certain banks, I thought I read somewhere certain banks won't do business with certain Trump.
I'd believe that. Now listen, I might be getting in over my head here, and maybe as I edit this later, I might second guess this. But I heard that there might be why am I doing this? That Trump has some dealings with Deutsche Bank that are a little nefarious.
I've heard about that too. Yeah.
So
we got to stop, Jared.
I know we really do. This is
getting into the deep.
Listen, I'm glad we're not in a communist country because we might get snatched up talking about this.
Right? Yeah, you got to be.
Although
be careful.
People claim that we are in a fascist country, so maybe I could still get snatched up for talking about this.
I think a lot of. Let me just say this, Jared. I think in any country you go to, as far as I'm concerned, other than maybe like Switzerland for some odd reason, I feel like regardless of the system, capitalist or communist, you got to be careful because there are crazies out there everywhere.
Sure.
I guess the difference is
I feel like I feel pretty safe here, to be honest with you. If anything, I wouldn't be concerned about. What I'd be more concerned about than anything might be my job. And I don't think I say any. And I don't think I say any. But like, I'm not concerned about like actually having any sort of legal repercussions.
Right. But we also don't say anything that's super crazy. Or, I don't know. If we do, let us know at untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com.
Because apparently family's listening now.
Right. No kidding. Gotta be a good example here, Jared. But the thing with capitalist and communist today is that I wanna really mention that, in my opinion, I'm planning on discussing more about economic levels of like communism and capitalism. We can talk a little bit about the government stuff, but I think it's, who are we to judge, I guess, is the way I look at it. Like, I always see so many Americans bash communist countries and communism, and I'm not here to do that. We might crack jokes today, but I feel like we're going to be cracking jokes towards both sides because capitalism is by no means perfect either.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of that it's just like propaganda, essentially. And now I think socialism is the new communism in modern day talk. Like you hear a lot of right wing people be talking about like how left like Bernie Sanders is a socialist or whatever, and he's going to bring back socialism. And I feel like they use that to scare conservatives in the same way that they used to use communism, like back when that was a threat that they thought was coming from like the Russians or whatever.
You mean during like McCarthy and
like
and all that
the
stuff,
Cold War and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is that we have a certain way of life here in the U.S. and the people who are privileged enough to live comfortably, I think, can really, at least they can buy into capitalism via face value, right?
Sure.
Because they, there's that old quote. I don't know if they've ever confirmed that she actually said it, but Marie Antoinette saying, "Let them eat cake."
Oh yes.
Basically meaning like if you give people just enough cake or just enough so they're satisfied.
Interesting. I just heard someone talk about that on a podcast the other day, and they said what it was that, now I wonder who's right. What they said was that what she was talking about was it was like a allegory for how unaware rich people are, because
that makes sense.
they're
just
like
eating
super
their cake.
poor and they don't even have access to like like meat or healthy food. And Marie Antoinette, who's a very rich person, is so unaware that she's like, well, let them eat cake.
Oh, that makes sense.
And it's like, well, they don't even have access to normal food, and this rich
So how are
person
they
is
gonna
just
get
so
cake?
unaware of.
Right. That makes sense.
That I don't know though. That's just what I happened to hear like a couple weeks ago.
No, that makes sense. That
Okay.
makes a lot of sense.
What were you gonna say? Or now you don't want to say it because
Well, no, I lost my train of thought.
Okay.
Well, the whole thing, I guess. Well, the thing about capitalism is, I think, if you give someone enough, I think if you can sway a culture and sway a people to think that material things will make you happy and money makes you happy. And I'm not saying that money is very important if you want to live, if you want to survive in today's society. You can't really do it without it. But I think to base all of your happiness in money alone is a dangerous practice, right?
Yeah.
But I think with a lot of capitalism, I mean, the goal here is, get that money. I feel like I get the image of like a racing dog or something with like a carrot or a bunny,
Yes.
in front of its face, always chasing it, maybe never completely being able to attain it. And I think that's why you have a lot of Trump supporters who they think he is a successful businessman and they think he's such a great person and he should be president because of money, basically. They think because he has a lot of money.
And it's even a lot of people that don't have money and they still are, admiring that he's both an everyman but also a rich person. I don't know. It's a weird dichotomy.
Right. It is. And the funny thing
I don't
is,
understand it, to be honest with you.
I don't either. And when I look at Trump, I ask myself a lot of times, is he really happy? And I really don't think he probably is. Is my life perfect? My life isn't perfect, but I mean, I'm pretty happy.
The main thing I wonder is how self-aware is he? Like how. Because I think it's fair to assume that he doesn't do a lot of introspection. It doesn't seem like. I just wonder how self-aware he is of his impact on people, and not the positive one.
Right.
I think he's very aware of the positive impact, the quote unquote, that he has on his followers and stuff. But does he ever reflect on like his on what people that don't like him think about him? I wonder.
Probably not.
I don't think so either.
Right. I don't know. The interesting thing though too about capitalism and communism is capitalism really, I mean, it's more in my opinion, at least when I think of capitalism, I think more of economics, and I think of money, and I don't really think too much about politics, although I think capitalism influences politics a lot. But communism I look at as kind of twofold. You can have a communist government, but you can also have a communist economy and a communist system in that regard. Like I think,
how could those two things be separated though? I feel like if the economy is a communist economy, then it has to be supported by a government.
Well, yes. So that's the thing though. So you can have a communist economy, meaning that the government, everything is a collective, right? I mean, that's really, these
are very, very ideal too, because
right.
For some reason in communist countries, there's always like 100 super rich billionaires.
Right. But see, here's the thing. Well, that's when communism turns into an oligarchy, which is also. But anyways, the whole point here is that I think if you look at China, if you look at how the economy is in China, I believe they call it socialist market economy, which means that in China you are allowed to own, and feel free to Google that. In China, you are allowed to own property. I mean, it's not that but the thing is that property you own, for example, if you buy a really nice apartment in China, you are allowed to own it for 70 years, and then it goes back to the government.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a different system, but then at the same time in China,
who owns a business? Well, so there's no such thing as a family-owned business, really.
Well, yes and no. So it's family-owned, but maybe where your shop is, that would be owned by probably the state, for example, right? But like
I do know that like at a lot of the big Chinese companies, that the government almost has like an office,
Yeah, that's true.
Like there is like a heavy government influence, not even just like regulations, but actually like a government influence on what the company's decision making are.
Well, it's the same with universities. I mean, there was a down the hall from my office was the communist, like that's where they would have their meetings and stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a different system.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is I think a lot of Americans, we tend to judge when we've never visited a country like that. We've never really experienced it. And look, I was only in China for half a year. I'm not an expert by any means, but I can tell you, what I saw, what I experienced. And I think a lot of people over there, they're hustling, but they are making money. People are, I think in China now there's this new wealth that's been coming in for maybe the last 10, 20, 30 years. And if you think about it, Jared, 20 to 30 years isn't a long time, especially in Chinese history.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see how, China is still by every mean a communist government, without a doubt. But their economy, I'll have to look it up again.
They give people the opportunity to flourish, but they're just like, hey, but we want a taste of that too.
Right. But Uncle Sam wants his taste too.
But it's not even that they want a taste. It's like, but we have some ideas.
In a different level. Yeah. It's just involvement in a different level.
We like what you're doing, but we have some ideas.
Right. But see, here's the thing though too. I mean, after spending time over there and seeing the architecture and seeing a lot of the stuff that goes on over there, I have to say, I think in some ways it might be good to have that kind of support on your side. It's just a different system. We don't really have that support on our side.
You think companies feel very supported and?
Well, I think you can probably look at it in two ways. Either yes, you feel supported, and if you have a good relationship. If you have a strained relationship,
sure,
that's when it probably gets tricky.
Oh, sure, of course. Yeah. See, but the good relationship, it's not a two-way street. The good relationship is, I imagine, clearly or almost fully based on you just complying when you're told to comply.
Right. But I think
it's not like you can be like, oh, that's okay, but I have another idea.
Well, I think it's not only complying, but I think it's also, I think if you can find a way where, never mind. Sorry. If you can find a way where both systems or parties or whatever you want to call it add value to one another, then I think it's everybody's good. Everybody eats.
Sure. Everybody eats cake.
Exactly. So, but it's definitely interesting. We were talking about before we started recording, we've both lived in countries that have had either lived or visited, places that were, post-communist, have been all over the different kind of spectrum of governments, economies, and stuff like that. So it's interesting to visit those places because they do have a different vibe, a different culture. It's really fascinating.
I did like the architecture of like the places in Czech Republic where they were, post the communist era. And obviously they're not, still living in that communist regime, and how much difference just a coat of paint makes on changing the vibe of a place. Because I imagine originally those buildings were all just boring cement, gray cement colors, and it's like, but if you just paint them, it really adds like a nice aesthetic to it that I like.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt, Jared. Well, I think we should give the people what they come for. I don't have any shout-outs today, though. Do you?
I don't either.
I don't either. All right.
How do you feel about? Let me ask you. This is how do you feel about regarding our the Republican infestation of COVID? Someone, by the way, there was a hashtag on Twitter that was hashtag COVID caught Trump.
Oh, geez.
But anyway, how do you feel about the people that, like, for example, Rachel Maddow put out a message like wishing the family well and like praying for the family and hoping for a speedy recovery. How do you feel about the people that strongly oppose the president, then like talk about like how they're praying for a speedy recovery? And is that a good human? Is that what a good human should do?
Yes and no.
I feel like I would say nothing.
I would agree with you there. I don't know though. I mean, I think if you do it sincerely with good intentions, it's okay, I guess.
So.
But
this is weird to see.
Exactly. But at the same time, look, like the guy or not, he is a fellow human being as far as we know.
I'm not convinced yet.
And I hate to say it as well, like it or not, but he is currently our president, and I don't wish ill will on anybody, but at the same time, it is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of karma.
The irony is there.
I mean, yeah, when you tell people not to wear masks and but I think he also came from such a privileged, getting tested every day and having
Which
access
is shocking.
to all this stuff.
It's like you have access to I feel like you should be very well. I mean, granted, besides for the fact that you are around, he is around a lot of people, but it's like obviously you have daily tests. But the thing is, the test tells you once you've gotten it.
Right.
Like there's nothing you can do once the test says it's positive.
Once you have it, yeah, it's not like...
So they test you daily just so they can catch it early, but that doesn't stop you from getting the daily test.
Right.
And then they have all these videos now of like people just schmoozing in the White House and no sort of obviously concern for the fact that there's a pandemic. And you see people, apparently, by the way, Kellyanne Conway's daughter, Claudia Conway, have you heard of her? Her TikTok is releasing more information than the White House.
Really?
Wow. She was I think if I'm not mistaken, she released before Kellyanne Conway or whatever, her people, she came out with the news that Kellyanne Conway had COVID first.
Really?
I think so.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just because, and because she does not like her mom, from what it seems like. And she's like, my mom's such an idiot.
I wonder though too, like how many of these people. I was wondering.
This is why they need to ban TikTok.
Right. I was wondering though, to be honest with you, Jared, when things started to get bad here, how long it would take to, because look, if you spread misinformation, if you don't take precautions, I mean, you are at a higher risk. At the end of the day,
sure,
that's what it comes down to, in my opinion.
I mean, it really does kind of seem like it was a matter of time.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
where it's like, how can you live? You're living more carelessly than I am, and you're surrounded by a lot more people than I am.
Yep. Oh yeah, and those people. That's the thing.
And those people are traveling all over the world.
They're traveling. They're meeting other people. And not everyone can easily get a COVID test.
Yeah.
A lot of it depends on your socioeconomic status, where you live, where you work.
And they're still showing videos, or I've seen pictures of a few like Republicans and stuff specifically on airplanes with like refusing to wear their mask and people not kicking them off the plane, or like, someone tells them to wear their mask and they put it on as soon as the person leaves, they pull it back down. and it's like, yeah, this is what happens.
Speaking of masks and everything, did you see that South Park came out with a pandemic special?
I'm surprised it took this long. No, I did not see that, but I'm going to watch it now that you say this.
All right, I won't ruin it. But it's funny.
The thing, no, please, at least give me like a sort of just what's the angle they're taking, I should say.
Well, there's one part of it. I forget what they call masks now. Do they call them chin diapers? They call them something because people in Colorado are only wearing them like under their chin.
Okay, yeah. I could already see. Was it Stan? Not Stan. What's the dad's name? Ron.
Randy Marsh.
I can already see him wearing one on his chin.
So he's a weed farmer.
Is that his job now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he he has a new strain called.
Can I borrow your charger?
Yeah. Go for it. Called the Pandemic Special, and so he's like selling it. I won't say more because I don't want to ruin it. It is ridiculous though. The South Park hour.
Where do you watch
special.
South Park?
Just on Comedy Central on TV.
Okay.
On cable. But it's on. I bet you it's on their website.
Well, they used to have. I mean, before there was all the cable connections and stuff on the internet, they used to just have every South Park episode for free on their website. I know.
Those were the days.
Yeah, I miss those.
Those were the days.
You could just go through and pick whatever you wanted from the entire catalog.
Yep. Life was a lot easier, Jared.
Yeah. Then once again, capitalism ruined it, and cable companies were like, you can get more money out of this. You don't just have to give those away for free.
Well, that's the gift and the curse of capitalism, man. Is nothing's free.
Hey, I'm a communist, and I say that the South Park is the people's show, and the people deserve access to the people's show.
Free access.
They should put it on C-SPAN. Just
that would be. I would rather watch that than C-SPAN. Dude,
honestly,
sure.
It's sometimes it feels like they have their like they have a better pulse on what's happening in the world than some of our politicians.
Yeah. I would say
so. Maybe that's not a bad idea. You said you don't have a shout out. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you how you felt about people giving shout outs too, and I think we agree. Yeah. You could also not say anything.
Right, but if it's sincere and you have no ill will,
I mean, I guess there are people that actually do feel that way. They do feel like
I felt a little sad for him. I mean, I put myself in. I feel bad for anybody who gets this. I mean, right now there's a lot we don't know about it. I mean, did you hear there was a 19-year-old that ended up passing away? I forget the college, but it was in. Well, anyways, doesn't matter. He was 19 years old, fit kid, was a long distance runner, and what ended up happening was, I guess somehow the virus attacked his brain, and so he wasn't able, and his body as well. So like the
long term effects scare me too.
Right.
People and also I mean, let's be honest. Trump does hit a few trouble. Like he's older.
He's got comorbidities,
low
overweight.
Income. That was a funny tweet I saw.
If you base it on his tax returns, it's not 100% false, Jared. Oh man, crazy stuff. Actually, you know what though, Jared? Actually, I do want to give a shout out. Now that we think about it, because you mentioned this earlier, I am wearing my my Chomutov hoodie today for any of the listeners out there.
That's a cool logo,
YouTube.
by the way.
Yeah, so we had to vote between a couple different logos, and this was the winner. And yeah, I think it's awesome. But yeah, so this was the school where I taught at in the Czech Republic, and some of my students who already took the Maturita exam, some of them didn't pass every part. There's multiple parts, and so they should have already taken it. So to those of my students out there who passed it, congratulations. And it's hard to believe, Jared, but the students that I met with that were sophomores, I believe, that were sophomores, are now seniors going to take the Maturita this year.
That's crazy.
So shout out to all of them, especially Honza. He sent me a couple messages. Really cool former student of mine.
I think he follows us on the gram.
He does. Actually, a lot of our supporters on the gram are from the Czech Republic. So just want to give a shout out to all of our homies out there in the Czech Republic. But anyways, Jared, it is time, I think, for some good old untranslatables, which are idioms, proverbs, axioms, phrases, sayings that don't translate on an easy one-to-one basis in English. And we are here to decipher, decode, and make the untranslatable translatable for all of our listeners out there today. And I will get us started.
You betcha.
With one from Russia, because it was a large part of the Soviet Union. Which I think a lot of Americans and most people associate with communism. And it is, one moment here. My old eyes can't see this here. V nogach pravdy niet.
Now, I can't look. Do you have the ability to read? You're reading the Cyrillic?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you
I have the
just in case? Yeah.
just in case.
So what is? I don't know what that means.
There's no truth in standing on your feet.
There's no truth in stand. Oh, we've had this one before.
Have we?
Yes.
What does it mean?
I've done it before, and I actually remember what this one means.
What does it mean?
It means that, when you welcome someone to your house, to truly make them comfortable, you have to offer them a seat, and it's just like a sign. It's just like making someone comfortable in your home.
Very good. Exactly. Hit that ham horn, Jared. Yeah. Yeah, take a seat. It's a gesture of hospitality. Absolutely. Which I feel like, too, as an American, I feel like we tend to equate communism with this kind of cold, harsh, you know what I mean? But I think on a people-to-people level,
yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of Americans forget that. And so,
right.
And
they just all think that they're just like with their little metal lunch boxes going to work and going home.
No, we
every
go
day.
to work. Right. Exactly.
I work, I sleep, I eat.
Exactly.
And I drink vodka. That's all they do.
And the funny thing is that I know at least in East Germany, after the fall of the Berlin Wall and when Germany was reunited, there were a lot of older people that had this kind of nostalgic view of communism, where things were different, and some things in that system back then in East Germany were better than when it was reunited. Like healthcare, apparently the quality of healthcare was actually fairly good.
Kind of like that movie that we've talked about before that we watched in German class, where that guy's mom had some sort of accident and she was in a coma.
Oh, Goodbye Lenin. That's a great movie.
And while she was in a coma, the wall fell. And the kids went through these extensive measures to make it still not like they had to like make it seem that she was living in a communist area, so she'd hide all the capitalism.
Right. Which would not be easy.
No. I mean, just imagine how hard that would. I mean, but they had a full operation going, changing labels and stuff. Like that was too much. Yeah. That's too much work. I would just be like, listen, it's over, okay? We bought you a Mercedes. Hopefully that'll make you feel better about the whole thing.
Right.
Get rid of the Trabby. My first untranslatable is Haitian Creole, and it's Dépidage de Caporal, since the devil was a corporal.
Since the devil was a corporal.
Since the devil was a corporal. Now, I think that there's a clue in there.
Is it the devil or the corporal?
No, it's neither of those words.
It's is.
It depends on what your definition of is.
Okay.
No, it's the first word, since the devil was a corporal.
Oh.
I feel like
give me a clue.
Well, I can. Anything would be pretty obvious. So it's like So you come up to me and you're like, "Damn, Jared, you smell bad. When's the last time you took a shower?" And I would say,
it's been a long time.
Yes.
It's been since that makes sense.
I just love the idea of there being some sort of rank system.
Right.
And like the devil at some point was in devil training.
And he was just a corporal.
Yeah.
And he had to rise to become the king, the general.
And it was, especially since have you seen The Good Place?
Oh yeah.
I just imagine him going through some sort of Good Place or Bad Place-esque training.
Right.
On how to torture people.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that is his job.
You are now a general in torture, and here are the keys to hell.
It takes a long time. You got to do 2 years, then an apprenticeship for a year. It's a lot of work.
He goes in scrawny with just little small horns.
Exactly. Comes out.
Yeah. Just these big old devil horns.
Exactly.
Those are real general horns.
Well, Jared, my next one is also Russian.
Okay.
And it is Держи хвост пистолетом.
Well, Chad, I would like to say
Спасибо.
And what does that mean?
It means keep your tail up with a gun. Don't worry, comrade. Keep your tail up with the gun.
That's is that like stay on your? It's like stay on your toes. It's like stay.
No, not quite.
Keep attentive.
No, ours is more related to a part of your face.
Keep your gun up with your toes. Oh, keep your chin up.
There we go.
Stay positive.
Yeah.
In the words
Yep.
of Lewis Hamilton, stay positive.
That's right.
That's a weird
right.
way of saying stay positive.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe it means like if you have a gun, like everything seems negative, you gotta somehow stay positive. I don't know. I don't know where it comes from, but that's
Okay.
my crazy theory for you out there.
My next one is Polish, and it's Owijać prawdę wybawne.
Something true or right.
Wow, very good.
Parada.
Wrap the truth in cotton.
Oh, that's like to sugarcoat something.
Very good. Yeah. Wow.
That's to sugarcoat
yeah.
something. That one is too obvious.
Well, we also
you know.
have an untranslatable here in the U.S.
What
would you say in the U.S.? Just out of curiosity.
to wrap the truth.
Wrap the truth in cotton.
I'm not. I mean, I would say to not sugarcoat, but I'm trying.
That works too. I guess I would say to beat around the bush.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. My last one for you is Flemish. I don't know why I picked Flemish, but I just thought it would be kind of cool.
That's a hard one to find, though.
Yeah, there's not a ton out there on the internet. So anybody listening, if you have some good Flemish untranslatables, please let us know at untranslatable podcast@gmail.com or on Twitter, untranslatable1, the number one. Anyways, mine is Flemish, and it is Vooruit met de geit.
Is that crazy?
Forward with the goat.
Forward with the goat. It just means like
This one's kind of related to your previous one, actually.
Forward with the goat. What, to beat around the bush?
I mean, kind of, yeah. If you were beating around the bush, I might tell you forward with the goat, Jared.
Oh, get on with it.
Yeah, very good. That's
On with it.
That's word for word what I have written on my notes. Yeah, get on with it, or get on with whatever you're doing. Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of don't beat around the bush.
Right.
But more of like an active sense rather than like a talking sense, I feel like. I don't know why that's the vibe I get, but it's the vibe I get.
Get on with it.
Yeah. All right.
Well, should we get on with it and talk about capitalism and communism?
Yes.
First, I would like to put out a political disclaimer here that Jared and I are not certified or recognized experts or anything on capitalism or communism.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, Chad, because I mean, I don't want to say I'm an expert, but I do have a degree in economics.
Okay, you are. That is very true.
And we
actually.
did have to learn about capitalism and a little bit about communism.
So let me put that disclaimer on myself here, people. And
but
Jared is.
I'm certainly by no means an expert because it's not like
Right.
my job is economics, you know.
Right. And I also want to say the purpose of this episode is not to bash either system or say which one is inferior or superior, because I think both have some pros and some cons to them. And, Jared, it very well could be that in the future I may live or work in a communist country again. And I would like to not irritate any of our listeners out there in the future that may be under a different political spectrum than we are. Anyways, let's get into it now. So let's talk about capitalism and communism. I think the key that as Americans, what we tend to think of is we do tend to associate a lot of negative things with communism as a government and as a system.
Yeah. I also find it interesting because I feel like in the U.S., when you say communist, China is obviously one of the top
Right.
countries, but I feel like Russia's still pretty high up there as a country we think of. Are they still communists?
I think
Are they just like
I think
heavily
technically
socialist?
not. Yeah, I think I'm not sure technically where they would fit.
But they're
on
not communists.
I mean, no. I mean, technically speaking, I think I'm doing air quotes here. Technically, I think Russia wasn't communist or stopped being communist after the fall of the Soviet Union. I could be wrong about that, but fact check me on that, Jared, because we're not trying to misinform people out here. But at least that's my knowledge is that, and I think now it would be more considered a democratic socialist republic. Am I wrong? Or is it still communist?
Geez, there's a lot of words. A lot of words.
Jared's looking up economy of Russia.
Jeez. I'm gonna.
Can't you do the find feature and just
Yeah, I
type in
can.
communist and see if anything pops up?
It's okay. So starting in 1986, Mikhail Gorbachev attempted to address economic problems by moving towards a market-oriented socialist economy.
Which is what they have in China as well. which is
right, which means you have opportunities to make your own money,
right,
but it's still a heavily social, heavy government influence.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So they have a centrally planned economy, which I believe means that once again the economy has a lot of influence by the centralized government. They're not really a communist country anymore, but I still feel like they have that.
Well, I think it's the Soviet Union is why they get that rap.
Yeah,
they get that reputation. And it's funny though too, because I think as Americans we tend to view communism as kind of this us versus them. Right. But I think that it's more just, I mean, this may sound kind of stupid and terribly redundant, but they're just different.
Well, people will also say that there's nothing really in our Constitution or anything saying that we have to be capitalist.
Right.
Like that's just something that it seemed to work out better. It's like, if we can't have slaves, I guess we'll have to do this capitalist thing is really we need it.
Right. I think also though it's different life philosophies in a way too though.
Sure.
Because I think in the States we tend to put a lot of emphasis on
individualism.
Exactly. Whereas I think
success.
Whereas I think a lot of communist countries is more about the collective.
I think part of that is too because we're so new as a country, and the way that, and I feel like we for some reason as a country relate so strongly to our freedom. Where I think there's a
which
huge
I think
fear.
is kind of an illusion.
We have
to some
extent.
For
sure.
Mm-hmm.
We have a huge fear of losing that freedom.
Right.
And I think having the government, dictate how much money you can make or what job you could do or whatever is obviously a loss of freedom.
Right. Well, what's interesting too is I do a lot of reading on Quora. You know what Quora is, right?
Isn't it just like a forum?
Yeah, it's just people ask questions, and I get I get a lot of stuff written in German.
You actually go to Quora?
I get emails with certain topics I like.
I've only accidentally ended up on Quora when I'm actually trying to learn something. And I'm like, I can't use this site.
Okay, well, I guess I'm a nerd, Jared, and I like to learn stuff.
Can you learn stuff from Quora? I thought it was just people giving their opinions, essentially.
I mean, some of it's opinions, some of it's, I've read some historical stuff on there. I mean, you can fact check a lot of that stuff.
Okay, so it's easy, it's fact checkable.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And like anything on the internet, you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Sure.
Except for the Untranslatable podcast, because this is just pure
I'm an
quality
economist.
Here. That's true. It's true. Jared's a doctor. He's an economist. We've done some medical episodes.
Yes.
Pretty soon we'll be doing some relationship episodes, and Counselor Jared will be coming, make a visit as well. But anyways, so.
Jared the Love Doctor.
That's right. That would be good. That would be a good spin-off podcast, Jared. There you go.
No, it would not.
But anyway, what were we talking about? I completely lost my train of thought.
Americans, capitalism.
That is our topic for today.
Yeah, I don't know. Clearly, I don't know either. I was going real broad there.
I'm trying to think.
What were you talking about? I don't remember.
We were.
Okay, well, let me ask you this: we are a heavily capitalist-run country here in the U.S., but we're not a capitalist country. Period.
Right.
I mean, we have a lot of socialized aspects of our economy. Now, obviously, that doesn't just mean we're a socialist economy. I guess it's like, what's the degree of socialized aspects versus private, privatized by the people aspects or whatever. But like, it's so weird to hear. We always hear like right-wing people and conservatives be like, Bernie's a socialist. He's trying to bring socialism to the United States.
It's kind of a dirty word.
And it's like you guys, it's like they're saying it, but it almost seems like willful ignorance, I mean, it probably is, where it's like there's no elaboration on what that really means. Right. He just says like, he wants to take your money and give people free shit is essentially how they.
And that's not how socialism. That's right, and that's not how socialism works.
Right. Right.
And socialism has its flaws too. It's it's not perfect either. But I think the problem is that what people do under any type of system or government is they point out the flaws in the other system.
Sure.
And say, well, communism is bad because, if you do have the problem with a communist government is if you have a leader that's incompetent, everyone suffers, right? Whereas if you have a system that's democratic in theory, right? The people choose. In theory, you have choices, right? So it's different, right? You could if you choose someone bad, in theory, you can get someone good later or whatever, right? Whereas communism,
I understand obviously the theory of it. It's just so funny for us to have this conversation.
It is, isn't it?
Started off talking about Trump at the beginning of this,
right? but the funny thing is, though, Jared,
democracy has failed,
right? Well, it has.
I think a lot of people would argue that that's very true.
Yeah,
that it's failed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and see. Any system is prone to fail. I think that's the thing.
Sure.
And the difference is, though, is that Americans, we love to point the finger at countries that were either developing or are still developing and that have gone through communist regimes and blame their situation or blame all that stuff solely on communism, which I think isn't always a fair.
And I think it seems like capitalism has the potential for failure just like communism does. Like it's for different reasons.
Of course.
But like for like the income gap is a huge problem. The wealth gap is just continuing to grow in these capitalist countries like the US,
right.
where the people that are rich are continuing to make more and more money. Meanwhile, the people that are middle class is they're slowly becoming poor, and just the number of poor people are growing. The number of poor and super rich people are simultaneously growing, and no one in the middle making a good living is that segment doesn't grow.
Right.
And I think that the way when we have especially just pure capitalism, it seems to breed. That's what it seems to breed, and it also seems to breed another thing I hate about capitalism. And I don't know if this is just a capitalism thing, but it seems to be exacerbated by all the growth of companies. Is the environmental, like the potential for just like the lack of concern for things like the environment,
right,
and the exploitation of like people.
But see, I don't know if that's
resources.
I don't know if that's a capitalism thing. I mean, I think you see that happening in China too. I
guess that's fair.
I think that's just a corporation thing.
I guess that's
it's
fair.
more of a money thing.
But I feel like I guess I think it's like a business thing because it's just like the constant need for economic growth, I guess.
Right. That's true. I think one thing too that's interesting is one thing that Americans will always argue about against communism, for example, is when you hear stories like, for example, when I was living in the Czech Republic, I heard stories of my colleagues who were older that lived through when Russia came to the Czech Republic and the Soviet Union came and occupied the Czech Republic and it was communist. I remember hearing stories about a line across the street for bread and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But what's interesting though too is that in a capitalist system, I mean, you can. I think the difference is in a capitalist system, you can see some serious levels of extreme poverty. I think in communism it exists, but I think it's a different, at least from what the people in the Czech Republic told me, under that system, some of the positives were like everybody had health care.
Now maybe this is just propaganda but I feel like when I was learning about the Soviet Union in school, they really painted it as if those like bread lines that were miles long was just like a weekly that was just how you got food for the entire time of communism, was just waiting in these long lines with a burlap sack on was just the entire thing. I feel like that's how it was sort of pushed to us. Like there was never a point where food was just like easy to come by. Like that was, I don't know. I maybe that's just the quote unquote capitalist propaganda.
Right. Well, either, I mean, you get a lot of propaganda on both sides.
Sure, of course. I mean, really, I'm sure our Song of the Pod is a great example. I mean, I don't know if there's a joke or not. I still can't tell. But
I can't either.
But obviously they had communist propaganda talking about how disgusting rich people were and how they were just exploiting humans for and they didn't care about the people,
which is ironic though because people at the top of that system also did really, really well for themselves. So it's really,
but they had to convince but they were benefiting. They had to convince the people that the system worked. As oh no, but this is good for everyone.
Right.
Even though I'm really good for me.
I want to share a list of a couple things that I had heard from some of my colleagues and friends in the Czech Republic that I think would be interesting, especially for a lot of Americans to hear. Number one of the things that I heard that some Czech people did actually like I mean, there were a lot of negatives, but there's always a little bit of, well, hopefully we hope there's a little bit of positivity,
Sure.
right? So, as I mentioned, medical care. So everyone had, access to healthcare. It was viewed as, everybody gets healthcare. Another thing I heard as well,
Which people claim is probably one of the greatest shortcomings of our country today.
Right.
Is the problems with our healthcare system.
Our healthcare system is a capitalist, for-profit healthcare system.
Yeah.
Which I think there are two things personally that should never be run as a business: education and healthcare. I think everything else is more or less fair game, but I think education and healthcare, these are things that are so important for society as a whole. I don't care if you're in a capitalist, communist. I don't care what country or system you're in. Your
Those
people
two
need
things
to
are necessary to any society to succeed.
Exactly. And even at some base level, I would even say basic access to some food. Like if you're poor and you some access to
like water, access to water.
Exactly. But another thing that I heard some of my colleagues and friends in the Czech Republic talk about were, in my office it was all women that I worked with, and they said that during the communist era, women actually had more rights and it was quote unquote more equal. Salaries were more equal. It was very different. So that's something that's kind of interesting to consider.
I guess it's theoretically. I mean, obviously, sexism always exists, but it'd be a little harder to have a gender pay gap if it's just like this is the role. Whoever's in this role gets gets this money. Right. And I guess especially if it's just like a government run thing where it's like we need a body to fill this role, and this is and I imagine too. Pay like what people got paid for different stuff was a lot easier to know in a communist system because I imagine the range is probably a little smaller than what it would be, and obviously if you're it might not even matter if you're in a different company if you're like in the same level or whatever. I imagine. I'm just guessing.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure either, but it's really fascinating to think about a lot of these things because, like I said, as being an American, I think we are almost brainwashed as kids that communism is bad,
that it inherently is flawed,
right?
And like cannot work, right? That's definitely something I learned as like a economics person.
But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think, and I'm not saying that. I think at face value, like the ideals of communism, I think because it's idealistic and not realistic, it won't work. But I do think there are some tenets of it that some people do like, and during communism as well, especially what I heard in the Czech Republic, is everyone had a job. You did not have to worry about having a job, and for some people that might honestly be a good thing. I'm not saying for everybody, but some people that don't have much direction in life and don't really care.
I feel like some people would argue that though, yes, everyone has a job, but that sort of way that it really limits creativity and innovation. Some might say,
yeah, sure,
because it's more because you don't have the opportunity to really explore what it is interests you. I feel like as much, and if you're just sort of plugged into the system,
yeah, definitely.
And I feel like. Well, a lot of technological growth that we've seen, especially sort of in the beginning of technology, when we look at, I don't know, things like cars or airplanes, or like when we're seeing like the growth of the industrialization of the U.S. or any sort of country that industrialized around that time. A lot of that innovation came from, I feel like, inventions, sort of the motivation to make money, essentially.
Because that's what drives the system.
Yeah,
So
it's like if I'm just plugged into some role, or like I guess I could find a way to make it better, but it's not gonna I'm not gonna get rich off of it. It's just gonna be like, all right, thanks for telling us this. We'll use it.
Well, I think it's a different.
Thanks for sharing it with the people. Exactly. Your knowledge is.
It's a different core set of values. I think I remember. I remember when I went to have lunch with my buddy David in Leipzig. We went to go have what was the soup called? It was this really good East German type of soup with potatoes, and it was delicious. But anyways, we went there and the service was really slow. And we've talked about restaurants before on the podcast. And in Germany and Europe in general, they let you take your time, which is normal.
Yeah.
But it was slower than usual. And at first, and we looked around and it wasn't busy. We weren't there during peak time, so it wasn't like they were swamped. And then my buddy David said, "Yeah, well, there's still some remnants of East German history and culture here, where people just aren't as driven by money. So if you're not that concerned about money and you don't really give very much of a tip anyways in Germany, why are you going to be inclined to constantly be rushing, constantly be trying to, you know what I mean? Like, I think capitalism, it forces you in a position where you kind of have to, in a way, try your best if you really want to make good money. At least that's a mindset. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If you look at waitstaff here in the States, they are hustlers because they know for every table they get, they're getting more tips.
But we have the opposite end of the spectrum where
Right.
I think the customer has a little too much power.
Sure.
And sometimes you see clear examples of the customers like waving that power over the employee,
And
to
that
be
just
like,
makes me sick. That's
be like,
disgusting.
oh, you messed that up. So there goes your 25%. Now it's going
Right.
to be down just to 15.
I asked for raspberry vinaigrette and not Caesar dressing, and
Yeah.
now
There
this
goes your tip.
right, exactly. Now this $100 bill that you were going to get $20 or whatever for, you're getting zero.
Yeah.
It's not good. But I agree with you, Jared. I think it just depends on, at the end of the day, what motivates you more. The idea of pushing towards a better collective, or just making the best so you can. And obviously, money isn't the only motivator for people.
Yeah.
But it's a big one. I mean, it's.
I think sometimes, though, it's so hard. So I imagine it's so hard for like a nation of hundreds of millions of people, like, to be a communist country.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like how do you get so many people to just fall in line? I don't understand that.
Well, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if you don't, there are dire consequences.
I guess so.
I mean, really. I mean,
I
that's,
guess so.
I mean, that's really how it works. And the interesting thing is too, is any system like that, there are ways around it. I mean,
Sure. I mean, we talked about countercultures recently.
Right.
I think the stricter the society, whether it be economically or government wise or whatever, the stronger the stronger the counterculture movement, or the more powerful maybe it could be.
yeah, sure.
Its potential
I
is.
think the key though with keeping societies and countries in line as well is I think if people really do believe that what they're doing is for the better good, and if the people are getting a piece of the pie, if you're keeping your citizens happy,
Yeah.
then they'll continue. I've read a lot of things on Quora, people asking about will there be a revolution in China and there won't be a communist government? And I find that hard to believe, because the Communist Party over there is from my understanding, is such a well-oiled machine, and it's so integrated into almost everything
Right.
over there that I don't know how it would work otherwise.
You'd have to have a complete rethinking of the entire government and everything.
And I have to say, I really do believe China is on the up and up. I think that they are going to become more powerful.
Might be the first time I've ever heard anyone say that before.
Right. You heard it here first, the Untranslatable podcast. Not really, but I think that the difference is, though, is that in China you have a communist government, communist party, but you have a socialist market where the people are allowed to own, and there are some private things.
They give people the opportunity to
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think because of this, I had it pulled up on this laptop. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
I wonder if in communist countries they're less likely to talk about work. Like, if they're less likely to be like, what do you do? That's such a common question to go to here in the United States. I wonder if that is more of a faux pas in a communist society.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. That's a good point.
It's not to say that maybe not, because just because it's a communist society, that's not to say they don't have pride in what they do.
I think what it might actually be as well is, I think in communism, the workers are kind of the glorified class. When we talk about the song on the pod, that's a theme that keeps coming up.
Yeah, but I feel like that's like a
tactic.
facade.
I mean, but I think
That's just what the rich people that control everything are trying to tell you once again.
I mean, Yes, I agree with that 100%. But if you look at the flip side of the coin, I mean, what else can you tell them? If you want to try to collectively, power and motivate your country, how do you do that?
Yeah.
You put the emphasis on
Well,
on
it's
the
funny
working
that I
class.
say that because it's really a facade here because
Yeah.
both sides of the political parties really try to appeal to the quote unquote working class as the working class just continues to shrink and shrink due to policies that are benefiting companies rather than the people. And so I
Right.
think here too, even in this capitalist economy, the idea of the working class is there's like a very glorified group, but I think it's just all lip service. Like I don't
Yeah.
think there's really any true respect for the quote unquote
Right.
working class.
Well, I hate to say this, but I think it's kind of similar to the way you see our military treated when they come
Yes.
back home.
Yeah. One of our greatest socialist programs, the
Right.
military.
Right, and yet they come home and
Yeah.
and we call them heroes and all that, and then they come home
And they get neglected when they have
Exactly.
psychological
Right.
problems or no
It's
access
crazy.
to health care.
Right. But anyways, I do want to talk about, I mentioned I think China will be and is on the up and up. But this started, Jared, in the 70s from Chairman
Communism?
the socialist market. It's
Oh.
when they opened up the market.
Oh, so it used to be
the
purely
70s.
communist before
Yes,
that.
yes, and then Chairman Deng Xiaoping is the one who is attributed, and that opened up trade between China and the West and a lot of other places. And I mean, it has really
so before
allowed,
the 70s, there was no influence of
Right.
Western products.
from my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
So it's really interesting though that how, I would say they do run a very tight ship in terms of the government side of it.
Yeah.
But economically, it's a very different system, I think, than what most. That's why like when Americans really, really speak negatively about communism, and I get there are a lot of negative aspects of it. I always wonder, I wonder if you would think the same if you actually went over there and experienced it and witnessed it. Because I saw a lot of people in China that seemed like they were doing very well for themselves, and so I think at the end of the day, whether it's capitalist or communist, there
But
are
is it
ways.
harder? Is it? Would you say? I imagine it seems like it would be harder to become rich in China versus the U.S. If you started off, I don't want to say with nothing. I don't know.
Right.
Sure, if you start off with nothing,
I don't know. I think it's hard to say. I think a lot of that comes down to the individual
yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, there are a lot
it's
of
really
like,
hard to
luck
say.
and a
Right.
lot of different aspects to.
and connections too.
Yeah,
and
who
the
you
skills
know,
you
for
have.
sure.
Do you have good social skills, good people skills?
That's true. Do you have anything to offer?
Right, exactly. Exactly. Well, Jared, should we move on and talk about our song of the pod?
You always think I'm going to drop it. I have control
Got
over it.
that
I can
calf.
feel it on my leg. Yeah, I got the calf grip. Yeah, I guess so. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to talk about regarding communism. What do you think? What do you prefer? Do you have a preference? You've been talking very highly. Well, first of all,
do I have a preference over
no one is
capitalism?
no country is just purely capitalist or
Right.
communist or
Correct.
communist at this point.
Right. I mean, what do I prefer? I mean, look, I grew up in a capitalist country. I
That's
grew
true.
up in a very different government system. I guess I just the thing that I am concerned with regarding communism is just that, like I think we've mentioned, when you have a good leader, communism can be a great system. But when you have a bad leader, it can be just as bad, if not worse, of a system. Whereas capitalism, I really view capitalism more as kind of every man and woman for themselves, where it's a free for all, and if you have good ideas or if you can monetize your skills or network or something, you can really flourish in a capitalist system. Whereas communism, I think it's more about, sadly, you don't have the freedom to experiment like we would in the States, for example. But at the same time, if the path that's been carved out for you is a path that is a good path for you, you can do great things. I mean, I met some really amazing teachers in China that were pretty successful, that have done really well for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of it does come down to who you are as an individual. If I could pick, I would like a mix. I would like to have a I would like to have, like, for example, I would like to stay here in the U.S. in our capitalistic system, but with some better socialist reforms. Like, I would prefer better access to healthcare. I mean, this is the first time since I've been back in the States where I've actually had legitimate healthcare, like legitimate insurance, not like just basic stuff in case something really bad happens.
In case you get hit by a bus, insurance.
Right. Whereas I can tell you that in other countries, especially communist countries, they don't always have that issue, but the quality of things might not always be the same. So it's hard to say. It's a toss up. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad in both.
I went to a hospital in Austria, which is, they have socialized medicine. Granted, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, so it was pretty empty anyway, but it was pretty seamless. But obviously there was not much going on. Right. Another thing I learned about when I was in college and high school too, I took some econ related classes, is that communism is flawed because inherently it doesn't account for people's greed that they naturally have, and people's and that people naturally are competitive, meaning that there's no way that that people can really live comfortably being maxed out, essentially.
Not only people are competitive, but I think people are very biased. So if you work really hard, right, in your job, and say we do the same job, right? We're both going to be janitors for this example here, Jared.
Okay.
And Jared works.
I prefer a custodial technician. But
okay, we're custodial. We are a comrade custodial technician together. And Jared works his tail off, people. He is making sure everything is spick and span. It's nice and clean. It's perfect. And then lazy Chad comes along, just kind of half-heartedly mops the floor,
looking at his phone with one hand.
Right, and a student, barfed in the stairwell, and I just put sawdust over it and called it good. Jared made sure to take care of it, But we make the same salary at the end of the day, right? And that's not even biased, but that's just you work harder. Therefore, but if we're in the same position,
I'm going to start to hate you after a while.
Right, resent me, and then maybe. For some odd reason, maybe I am better buddies with our boss, and then I get promoted.
So you're like the lead custodial
right?
technician.
And I'm bossing you around now, but I'm making more money. So there's a lot of issues why there can be a lot of problems.
Just hearing this made up story.
That's the goal of every episode here, Jared, is try to make you angry or mad at some point. But yeah, anyways, I mean it's really crazy though to think about the cultural implications of it. As well, and just how people interact with one another. I think I will say this. I think in communist countries, people do have better respect for hierarchy and stuff like that because like here
they don't really have any other choice,
right? Well, they do and they don't. I guess. I mean, I think.
I mean, you can have like a storm out moment at a job in a capitalist society. Be like, oh, you know what? F this job, and then they're like, there's no government being like, you got to go back. Right. That's your job.
It's a very different way it's set up. That's for sure. But let's talk about our song on the pod, Jared.
Yeah.
So this is a crazy one because Jared and I found it. Well, Jared found it on YouTube. How did you find it? You just searched.
I just typed in like communist songs or communist music. Can you play it for us?
Sure. On here.
Yeah. I literally just typed in like communist music or something. Something that simple. Oh, it's coming through your computer. Oh, because your Focusrite's plugged into that computer. That's why.
Well, here we'll
mute it and then just read it. Yeah. So what it is it's an animated video of these creatures, and it's like
looks like a worm.
It's essentially in a spider with a sword and a gun.
So, all right. Well, first off, here, if we're going to talk about the video. All right, so the song, is called the Sozialistische Weltrepublik, the Socialist World Republic. And it's hard to tell based on the animation and everything if this is to be taken seriously or
I feel like it's a parody,
joke.
Partially because it's in German. I mean, I guess they are German, but there's also like Chinese characters on
right.
in it.
Well, and there's images of Russia
too.
Yeah. Well, but the funny thing is, I mean, this color scheme is perfect. I mean, you see lots of red and yellow, which I think are very communist
love
countries.
Red.
Yep. I mean, you
both
see
Russia and China. Those are big.
And you have the hammer and the sickle, which is the worker. But so it starts off with this very gallant and triumphant trumpet music or horn music, it comes in, and it really it took me. I was restringing Jared's partner's guitar, and this came on and immediately caught my attention.
It's
but there are English subtitles, and it's all animated, and and it's talking about has images of like these fat bankers
cats,
or but then there's this video's all over the place.
But they're just saying that like the capitalists are trying to take over with their and just rule with money and dominate the working man, and that the working man needs to arm themselves to fight the fascists.
Yep, which is any system that's not the
I actually just recently, with all the talk about Antifa that's been going around recently, I actually just took some time to figure out what the heck fascist even is. And it's just any system that a leader uses force and sort of like the military and police to suppress people's thoughts and opinions and
right. No freedom of expression. Right. But yeah, it's quite it could be in like an old army movie.
Yeah,
it's really crazy.
It feels very. I mean, once again, it does seem like a joke, but it is very like communist propaganda-y.
Right. But I think that's why it comes off kind of jokey and a little hokey, just because it is kind of. It's so stereotypical, it almost hurts.
And, it almost seems like something they'd play for kids, like in East Germany in like the 80s.
Right. You start your school day. You come into the school, you're ready to go. Right.
Remember, do not let the capitalists sway you.
Right. It's
money is the enemy.
It's quite the crazy video. But I mean, the music will get you pumped for sure. We were getting ready to go, moving our arm. Yeah, and there's a Russian flag and a Chinese flag. I wonder what. Oh, it probably just says Social Republic in those different languages. I was wondering what that says, but yeah. But it's quite a banger. I would say it definitely.
So I guess you can find that on our Song of the Pod playlist. On Untranslatable podcast on YouTube.
Absolutely. So to wrap up today's episode, I wanted to leave our listeners with a little advice as someone who has lived in capitalist countries and communist countries. Well, number one, obviously, and this kind of goes without saying, but if you visit any communist country, do your homework before you go. Make sure you are well aware of what you can and cannot do there. I mean, Jared's giggling right now, but it's true.
I guess so.
You you really don't.
I guess so.
And I think the difference with a capitalist country is, in theory, if you get in trouble here, and especially if you are okay financially, you can a lot of times kind of,
Well, that is a big flaw of capitalism,
right?
Is that those with money have the most influence and access, which theoretically, in a communist system, everyone has the same access to.
And another tip for especially our American listeners out there who ever visit any communist country out there, go there with an open mind, because it's very easy to go there and I think both sides, the East and the West, we've all been brainwashed one way or another, Jared. We've all been indoctrinated, to believe certain systems and certain things are better or worse.
We're brainwashing you right now.
That's right. We have a subliminal thing in the background here. That always
the Untranslatable podcast money. Wow.
Exactly. But yeah, I think we need to get away from this idea of just always pointing the finger at one another and saying, well, your system is bad, my system is good, and learn from one another and take what works from certain systems and apply them if you can, and take what doesn't and learn from it.
Especially since we have the ability to take bits, we're already playing in the socialist area anyway, where it's like, all right, well, what aspects are these other countries do they not have to worry about because they've socialized it, like healthcare that we've always talked about? Where it's like this seems like a solvable problem that people with money, it just doesn't benefit the companies at stake or the politicians at stake financially to do it.
And I will say this as well: the thing I like about communism is there is more of an emphasis on the collective. Like if you look at how a lot of communist countries have handled the coronavirus pandemic, some of them have done China, in my opinion, after the beginning, now they've done a great job handling it.
I wonder if you can feel that sense of camaraderie in reality.
Yeah, over there you can.
Like they feel like they're very open with one another, and they're like, we're all in this together.
Yeah, I would say there is this sentiment of we do this for the better of the country.
Okay, so you can feel that. It's not just like, I gotta do this fucking stupid... I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, well, we are explicit if you look at our rating, Jared, so you're good.
I just usually
how many
be that
swears?
careless.
Yeah, how many swears do we have per episode, Jared?
Yeah,
do we have
I
a
mean,
number?
luckily, I think it's not a PG-13 rating.
Right.
Once you do the explicit, you're just free to go ham.
Right. That's right.
I just tend to be more cautious than that.
But I agree with you. I do think that I just remember seeing messages, and at least that's kind of the thing that people do say. Whereas here in the States, we definitely, I think, sadly, I think in the past there was more of a notion of doing things for the betterment of the country. Now I think because right now things have been more or less feel kind of, at least in my opinion, like a dumpster fire. There's just not that type of sentiment. So I do think that's different. And at the same time, too, with capitalism, I do think there is, like you said, a lot of room for innovation and growth and stuff like that. But as we've seen with the case of China, with their economy and everything, they've had a lot of amazing growth.
Sure.
Because I think they have taken some good things from our system and applied it to theirs, you know?
And I think, yeah. Well, also, and I think to be a quote-unquote dominant country like China, I imagine, wants to be, it does require, like... They also do recognize the importance of innovation being a step. Like you have to be like a leading, innovating country if you just want to be like a quote unquote superpower. Anyway, it seems like at this point,
definitely.
So I think it's just also like that. Maybe that idea of being a leading, innovating superpower wasn't as big as a motivator years before as it is now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's hard
I don't
to
know
say.
either. I don't
yeah,
know
it's
either.
hard to say, but it's an interesting question to think about.
I guess it's always kind of been a thing. Like during the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s, it certainly was a thing. Like, it's just technology was what we consider simple.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah,
nowadays.
absolutely. But I think one of the big flaws in both systems, actually, it's the same thing.
The people.
I was gonna say the greed. I think greed actually exposes the flaws in capitalism and communism. If you think about it, just in different ways. Like in capitalism, you have these people who grow so exponentially that they could be giving back more and they could be helping more, and they don't. And in a capitalist system, they technically don't have to. Right. Whereas,
but the idea is that the good thing with people becoming richer is that they will then, be, starting new industries and new businesses, and that quote unquote trickles down.
In theory,
which never really seems to come to fruition, which is why there's a growing wealth gap. But I think that's their thought, where it's like, oh no, this is a system for the people, because once one person gets richer, they're most likely to start a business and share that wealth with a whole, open up a whole new income stream for people.
Right. Yeah,
which is possible, but it seems more like, if you look at Jeff Bezos, it seems like he's very good at making himself a lot more money, while the people that work for him, their standard of living doesn't seem to improve that much.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's just a different overall view of the importance of money, how to live with money, how to live in a society.
And I think who's important to the company too, because you talked about how the working class is the most important group in communism, and I think. In capitalism, the executives are the most important ones.
Well, workers are more or less replaceable. It's really,
exactly. They're just a resource for the company.
Right. And I do remember talking to one of my colleagues. She had mentioned that back then in the 70s, I don't remember if it was 70s or 80s. She told me it was very difficult to get fired from a job. And that was under a communist system, I can imagine that. So it's very different.
It's more, because it seems like just a hassle.
Right. So yeah, anyways, let us know your thoughts, though, on capitalism and communism. Email us at untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. You can slide into our DMs on Twitter, untranslatable1, the number 1. Also, check us out on YouTube, Untranslatable Podcast. And you can check out our Song of the Pod playlist with this week's kind of crazy one, but it'll definitely entertain you, keep you entertained, that's for sure. So as always, we really appreciate your support, and as we say here at the Untranslatable Podcast, dziękujemy, muchas gracias, shisha, and do svidania.
What a wild week, dude.
Pretty crazy stuff.
I'm kind of mad at myself, and don't end it. You don't have to end it so quickly. I need to have some at the end. I'm so mad at myself for it. It's so annoying that just how something like the president getting sick makes me so glued to social media even more than I already was. Just constantly looking at that trending.